Maya Chen walked through the hallways of Lincoln High School like she owned the place. In many ways she did. Her family had more money than most people in the town could imagine. Her father owned shopping centers, office buildings, and apartment complexes all over the city. Her mother sat on every important committee and charity board. Maya had grown up knowing that her last name opened doors and silenced complaints. She was 17 years old and in her senior year. She had perfect hair that fell in dark waves down her back, always styled by professionals at the salon her mother visited. Her clothes were designer labels that most students only saw in magazines. Her nails were always done. Her makeup was always flawless. She looked like she had stepped out of a fashion photo shoot and she knew it. But Maya's real power was not in how she looked. It was in how she made other people feel small. She had perfected the art of cruelty over many years. She knew exactly what to say to make someone feel worthless. She knew how to laugh in a way that made others feel stupid. She knew how to look at someone and make them wish they could disappear. Maya had a group of friends who followed her everywhere. There was Jessica, the student council president whose family owned the largest car dealership in town. There was Brittany, whose mother was a local news anchor. There was Chloe, whose father was a surgeon at the hospital. These girls laughed at Maya's jokes, agreed with everything she said, and helped her carry out her plans to embarrass other students. Together, they ruled the school through fear and money. Teachers rarely disciplined them because their parents donated generously to the school. The principal smiled nervously when he saw them in the hallway. Other students moved out of their way and tried not to make eye contact. Maya's favorite target was a girl named Sophie Martinez. Sophie was also a senior, but that was where the similarities ended. Sophie was at Lincoln High on a scholarship. Her mother cleaned houses for wealthy families in the area. Her father had died 2 years ago from cancer, leaving Sophie and her mother struggling to pay bills and buy groceries. Sophie wore the same 3 outfits to school, rotating them throughout the week. Her jeans were faded and had small patches where her mother had repaired holes. Her shoes were old sneakers that had lost their shape. Her backpack was held together with safety pins. She brought lunch from home in plastic containers, usually rice and beans or leftovers from whatever her mother had cooked the night before. Sophie kept to herself. She sat in the back of classrooms and never raised her hand unless a teacher called on her directly. During lunch, she found quiet corners of the cafeteria or sat outside under a tree. She did not try to make friends. She had learned that it was easier to be invisible than to risk giving Maya and her friends ammunition for their cruelty. But Maya would not let Sophie be invisible. She seemed to take special pleasure in reminding Sophie that she did not belong at Lincoln High. Almost every day, Maya found a new way to humiliate her. In the morning, when Sophie walked through the main entrance, Maya would be there with her friends. They would look Sophie up and down and whisper loud enough for her to hear. "Is she wearing that shirt again?" Brittany would say. "I think I saw my maid wearing something similar," Maya would respond, and they would all laugh. In the cafeteria, Maya made sure to walk past Sophie's table. She would look at Sophie's lunch and wrinkle her nose. "That smells weird," she would announce. "Doesn't your mom know how to cook American food?" Sophie would keep her eyes down and continue eating, but her face would turn red and her hands would shake. In gym class, when teams were picked, Maya made sure Sophie was always chosen last. "Nobody wants the charity case on their team," she would say with a sweet smile. The gym teacher would tell Maya to be quiet, but the damage was always done. Sophie would stand there alone until someone was forced to take her. The worst days were when Maya organized elaborate pranks. Once she and her friends filled Sophie's locker with trash from the cafeteria. Another time they started a rumor that Sophie had lice, and for weeks, students moved away from her in class. They posted edited photos of Sophie online with cruel captions. They made fake social media accounts pretending to be her. The teachers knew what was happening. They saw the way Maya and her friends treated Sophie. They heard the comments and saw Sophie's face when she was humiliated. But they did not do much to stop it. When teachers tried to intervene, they received phone calls from angry parents threatening to pull donations from the school. The principal would have quiet conversations with the teachers, reminding them that the Chen family had just funded the new science lab. The Torres family had paid for the football field renovations. The Kim family was sponsoring the debate team, so the teachers would give Maya detention occasionally or send her to the principal's office for a talk. But nothing really changed. Maya learned that her money and her family's influence protected her. She could do almost anything she wanted, and the consequences were never serious. Sophie endured it all with quiet dignity. She never cried in front of Maya, though she cried many nights at home. She never fought back or said cruel things in return. She focused on her grades, which were excellent. She did her homework in the public library after school while her mother cleaned houses. She studied for tests on the bus. She wrote essays on an old laptop that took forever to start up. Sophie had a secret, though. She had one thing that brought her joy and helped her survive the daily humiliation. She loved to sing. Her father had been a mariachi singer before he got sick. He had performed at restaurants and parties and weddings. He had a beautiful voice that could make people cry with emotion. Sophie had inherited that voice. When her father was alive, they used to sing together in their small apartment. He taught her Mexican folk songs and romantic ballads. He showed her how to breathe properly and how to let emotion flow through the music. He told her that singing was not just about hitting the right notes. It was about touching people's hearts. After he died, Sophie stopped singing around other people. Her grief was too raw, and singing reminded her too much of her father. But she could not give it up completely. She needed music like she needed air. She discovered that the music room at Lincoln High was empty during lunch period. The music teacher, Mr. Harrison, taught classes in the morning and had lunch duty in the afternoon. The room was unlocked and nobody used it during that time. Sophie started going there to sing. She would slip into the room quietly and lock the door behind her. She would stand by the piano and close her eyes. Then she would sing the songs her father had taught her. She sang in Spanish, pouring all her pain and loneliness and hope into the melodies. Her voice would fill the empty room, powerful and pure and full of feeling. For those 30 minutes each day, Sophie was not the poor scholarship girl that everyone mocked. She was not the target of Maya's cruelty. She was herself, connected to her father's memory, expressing emotions that she could never put into words. Singing made her feel strong. It reminded her that she had value, even if Maya and her friends could not see it. Sophie never told anyone about her singing. It was her private sanctuary, the one thing Maya could not touch or ruin. She was careful to always leave the music room before the lunch period ended. She made sure nobody saw her coming or going. The music room became her safe place in a school where she felt unsafe everywhere else. Maya had no idea that Sophie could sing. She had no idea that Sophie had any talents or interests at all. To Maya, Sophie was just a poor girl who did not belong, someone who existed to make Maya feel superior by comparison. Maya never wondered what Sophie thought about or cared about or dreamed about. She never saw Sophie as a real person with feelings and a history and hidden depths. Maya's own life looked perfect from the outside, but it was empty in ways she did not fully understand. Her parents were always busy with work and social obligations. They gave her money and bought her things, but they rarely spent time with her. Her father was usually traveling for business. Her mother was usually at the country club or organizing charity events. Maya had been taking voice lessons since she was 8 years old. Her mother thought it was a proper activity for a young lady from a good family. Every week, Maya went to a vocal coach who taught her classical technique. She learned to sing opera arias and art songs. She performed at country club events and her parents' dinner parties. But Maya's singing was technically correct without being emotionally moving. She hit the right notes and used proper breath support, but something was missing. The guests at her performances would applaud politely and tell her parents how talented she was, but nobody was ever truly moved by her singing. Maya did not sing from her heart because she had never allowed herself to feel deeply. She had built walls around her emotions, using cruelty and superiority to avoid vulnerability. As senior year continued, Maya's reign at Lincoln High seemed unshakable. She had been accepted to a prestigious university, where her parents were major donors. She was planning to study business, though she had no real passion for it. Everything in her life was mapped out and secure. She would graduate, go to college, eventually work in her father's company, marry someone from the right family, and continue the cycle. Sophie, meanwhile, had no clear path forward. She had been accepted to the state university with financial aid, but she would need to work full-time to cover expenses. She worried about leaving her mother alone. She worried about money constantly, but she held on to a small dream that felt impossible. She wanted to study music. She wanted to honor her father's memory by developing the gift he had given her. She had looked up performing arts programs and vocal performance degrees, but they all seemed out of reach for someone like her. The two girls moved through the same hallways, sat in some of the same classrooms, and existed in the same building, but they lived in completely different worlds. Maya surrounded by admirers and privilege, Sophie surrounded by loneliness and struggle. Neither girl knew that their lives were about to collide in a way that would change everything. Neither could imagine that a single event would shatter Maya's carefully constructed world and reveal Sophie's hidden strength. The spring semester brought an announcement that would set everything in motion. The student council posted flyers all over the school about the annual talent show fundraiser. It was a tradition at Lincoln High, held every year to raise money for school programs. Students performed music, dance, comedy acts, and other talents while parents and community members bought tickets to attend. Maya saw the announcement and smiled. She had performed in the talent show before and always received polite applause. This year, as a senior, she wanted to make a bigger impression. She wanted to prove she was the most talented student at Lincoln High. Her competitive nature and need to be the best at everything kicked into high gear. But this year, the student council had made a change to the rules. Jessica, Maya's best friend and the student council president, announced it at a school assembly. Every senior had to participate in the talent show. It was mandatory. Seniors who refused would face detention and would lose certain privileges, including parking spots and early release periods. The announcement caused a lot of groaning and complaints. Many students had no desire to perform on stage, but the rule was firm. Everyone had to participate or face consequences. Maya had actually suggested the rule to Jessica, though she pretended she had nothing to do with it. She saw it as an opportunity to watch other students embarrass themselves while she shined. As Maya looked around the auditorium during the assembly, her eyes landed on Sophie sitting in the back row. A cruel smile spread across Maya's face. This mandatory talent show was going to be the perfect opportunity for her biggest prank yet. She was going to make sure that Sophie's humiliation was complete and public. The talent show was going to be unforgettable. The day after the assembly, Maya put her plan into action. She had spent all evening thinking about how to make the talent show as humiliating as possible for Sophie. She wanted everyone at school to watch Sophie fail in the most public way imaginable. The idea filled Maya with a sense of power and excitement. During lunch period, Maya gathered her friends at their usual table in the cafeteria. Jessica, Brittany, and Chloe leaned in close as Maya explained her plan in a low voice. "We're going to make sure Sophie Martinez has to perform something really embarrassing," Maya said. "And we're going to schedule her right before my performance so everyone can see the difference between someone with real talent and a charity case pretending to be special." The girls all laughed and nodded. "What should we make her do?" Brittany asked. "Dance? She probably has no rhythm." Maya shook her head. "I'm going to make her sing, can you imagine? That quiet little mouse trying to sing in front of hundreds of people? She'll probably freeze up and not even be able to make a sound. It's going to be perfect." Jessica looked uncertain for a moment. What if she refuses to sing? What if she picks something else to do? Maya smiled coldly. "Leave that to me. I'll make sure she has no choice. And Jess, you need to make sure the schedule puts her right before me. Can you do that? You're on the organizing committee." Jessica nodded slowly. "Yeah, I can arrange the schedule." "But Maya, are you sure about this? Some people are already saying we're too mean to her." Maya's eyes flashed with anger. "Who cares what people say? Are you with me or not?" Jessica quickly backtracked. "Of course I'm with you. I'll make sure everything is set up exactly how you want it." After lunch, Maya waited outside the cafeteria exit where she knew Sophie would walk past. When Sophie came through the doors, Maya stepped directly into her path. Sophie tried to move around her, but Maya's friends formed a circle, blocking her escape. "Sophie," Maya said in a falsely sweet voice, "I wanted to talk to you about the talent show. Have you decided what you're going to do for your performance?" Sophie kept her eyes down. "I was thinking maybe I could help with the stage crew. Setting up lights or moving props or something." Maya laughed. "Oh no, that won't work. The rules are very clear. Every senior has to perform on stage. You can't hide behind the curtains. So what's it going to be? Are you going to dance? Do magic tricks?" She paused dramatically. "Or maybe you'll sing for us." Sophie's face went pale. "I don't want to sing." "Why not?" Maya pressed. "Are you afraid? Do you have a bad voice? Come on, everyone has to do something. Singing is easy." You just open your mouth and make sounds. Even you can do that, right? Sophie shook her head and tried to push past the circle of girls, but they closed ranks. I'll think of something else, Sophie said quietly. Actually, Maya said, pulling out her phone, I already signed you up to sing. Look, your name is right here on the list. Sophie Martinez vocal performance. It's all official now. Sophie's eyes widened. You can't do that. I didn't agree to that, Maya shrugged. Too late now. The list has been submitted to Mr. Harrison and the principal. If you want to change it, you'll have to go explain to them why you're trying to get special treatment. But we both know you won't do that, will you? You never stand up for yourself. Sophie stood there trapped and helpless. She knew Maya was right. She could not go to the principal and complain. She had no power in this school. Her scholarship made her vulnerable. She could not risk causing trouble or seeming difficult. She had to keep her head down and survive until graduation. I guess I'll sing then, Sophie said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya's smile was triumphant. Wonderful. I can't wait to hear you. I'm sure you'll be amazing. The sarcasm dripped from her words. Her friends laughed as they finally stepped aside and let Sophie pass. Sophie walked away quickly, her face burning with shame and fear. She felt tears stinging her eyes but refused to let them fall until she was alone. She made her way to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall, finally allowing herself to cry quietly. The one thing that was private and special to her had been turned into a weapon. Maya had taken her sanctuary and twisted it into a trap. Word spread quickly through the school. Maya made sure of that. She posted on social media about how the talent show was going to be amazing, because everyone was participating, even people who had no business being on stage. She did not name Sophie directly, but everyone knew who she meant. Her followers commented with laughing emojis and jokes about how entertaining the show would be. In the hallways between classes, Maya would see Sophie and make comments loud enough for others to hear. I hope you're practicing for your big performance, she would say. The whole school is going to be watching. No pressure, though. Then she would laugh and walk away with her friends. Maya also started a betting pool among the popular students. People put money on how badly Sophie would perform. Would she forget the words? Would she run off stage crying? Would her voice crack? The cruel game spread through text messages and group chats. Even students who were not normally mean got caught up in the excitement of mocking someone who could not fight back. The teachers noticed the increased bullying but did not know the full extent of what was happening. They saw Maya making comments to Sophie and told her to stop, but they did not know about the social media posts or the betting pool or the systematic campaign to terrorize Sophie about the talent show. Sophie's anxiety grew with each passing day. She had 3 weeks until the talent show. Every night she lay awake worrying about it. She considered pretending to be sick on the day of the show, but she knew there would be consequences. She thought about going to the principal and explaining what Maya had done, but she was too afraid of making things worse. Her mother noticed that something was wrong. Maria Martinez worked long hours cleaning houses, but she always made time to check on her daughter. One evening she found Sophie sitting at the kitchen table with her homework untouched, staring into space with tears running down her face. Mia, what's wrong? Maria asked, sitting down beside her daughter and taking her hand. Tell me what happened. Sophie tried to explain about the talent show and how Maya had forced her to sign up to sing. She told her mother about the bullying and the jokes and how scared she was to perform in front of everyone. They're going to laugh at me, Mama. They already think I don't belong at that school. This is just going to make it worse. Maria's face hardened with anger. That girl has no right to treat you this way. We should go to the school and complain. This is bullying and it's not acceptable. But Sophie grabbed her mother's hand tightly. Please don't. It will only make things worse. Her family has so much power at the school. They'll find a way to blame me or make me look like a troublemaker. I just have to get through this and then graduate in a few months. Please, Mama. Maria looked at her daughter's frightened face and felt her heart break. She knew Sophie was probably right. Rich families like the Chens had ways of protecting their children that poor families like theirs did not. But she hated feeling helpless. Then you have to perform, Maria said firmly. You can't let her win by refusing or running away. You have to go up on that stage and show them what you can do. But I'm so scared, Sophie whispered. What if I freeze? What if my voice doesn't work? What if everyone laughs? Maria squeezed her daughter's hand. Do you remember what your father used to say about singing? He said that singing is truth. When you sing from your heart, you speak truth that words cannot express. He gave you his gift, Mija. That girl Maya, she can mock you and say cruel things, but she cannot take away the gift your father gave you. Sophie felt fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I miss him so much, Mama. When I sing, I feel like he's with me. But now Maya has ruined that too. She's turned singing into something to be afraid of. No, Maria said strongly. She has not ruined anything. She is trying to humiliate you, yes, but she does not understand what she is dealing with. You have real talent, Sophie. I have heard you sing when you think no one is listening. You have your father's voice in his heart. This girl Maya, she will expect you to fail. So you must surprise her. You must walk onto that stage and sing like your father taught you. Sing the truth of who you are. Sophie wanted to believe her mother, but the fear was overwhelming. Still, she nodded. She had no choice. She was trapped in this situation, and the only way out was through. She would have to face her worst nightmare, and hope that somehow she would survive it. Meanwhile, Maya was preparing for her own performance with her usual confidence. She met with her vocal coach twice a week to perfect her song choice. She had selected a difficult opera aria that would show off her technical training. She bought an expensive dress for the performance. She practiced her stage presence in front of the mirror, perfecting her posture and gestures. Maya was not worried about the competition. She knew she had better training than anyone else at the school. She had been taking lessons for 9 years. She knew music theory and proper breathing technique. She could read sheet music and had performed in recitals since childhood. There was no way any other student could match her skill level. She especially was not worried about Sophie. In Maya's mind, Sophie was just a poor girl with no training and no confidence. She would probably sing something simple and childish, and even that she would mess up. The whole performance would be painful to watch, which was exactly what Maya wanted. It would make her own polished performance look even better by comparison. Jessica confirmed that the schedule had been arranged exactly as Maya wanted. Sophie would perform in the second half of the show, right before Maya's finale performance. It's perfect, Maya told her friends. Everyone will see her embarrass herself, and then I'll come out and remind them what real talent looks like. It's going to be my moment. As the date of the talent show approached, the excitement built throughout the school. It was the biggest event of the spring semester. The auditorium could hold 500 people, and tickets had sold out quickly. Students' families would be there, along with teachers, school staff, and community members who supported Lincoln High. For most students, the talent show was just a fun evening of entertainment. But for Sophie, it felt like walking toward her own execution. Every day brought her closer to the moment when she would have to stand on that stage in front of everyone who had ever mocked her, everyone who thought she did not belong, everyone who had laughed at Maya's jokes about her. Sophie stopped going to the music room during lunch. She could not bring herself to sing anymore. The joy had been taken from it, replaced by terror. She thought about the song she would perform. Her father had taught her a beautiful Spanish song called Por ti volaré, which meant For You I Will Fly in English. It was a song about love and hope and the courage to reach for your dreams despite obstacles. Her father used to sing it at weddings, and it always made people emotional. Sophie decided she would sing that song for him. If she had to face her fear, she would do it while honoring his memory. She would sing the way he taught her, from the heart with truth and emotion. She did not have fancy training or expensive lessons, but she had something Maya could never buy. A genuine connection to music that came from love and loss and survival. The night before the talent show, Sophie could not sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with anxiety. She thought about her father and wished he could be there to support her. She thought about all the times Maya had humiliated her, and wondered if tomorrow would be the worst one yet. She thought about walking onto that stage and seeing hundreds of faces staring at her, waiting for her to fail. But she also thought about her mother's words. She thought about the gift her father had given her, and somewhere deep inside, beneath all the fear and doubt, a small spark of determination began to glow. Maya had forced her into this situation, but Sophie would decide how it ended. She would not let Maya take singing away from her forever. She would walk onto that stage and she would sing. Whatever happened after that, at least she would know she had not run away. The day of the talent show arrived with bright sunshine and a clear sky. Sophie woke up feeling sick to her stomach. She had barely slept and had dreamed about standing on stage while everyone laughed at her. Her mother made her breakfast, but Sophie could only manage a few bites. Everything tasted like cardboard in her mouth. "You are going to be wonderful," Maria told her daughter, smoothing Sophie's hair back from her face. "I will be in the audience in the front row if I can get there early enough. You just look at me if you get scared." "I will be there for you," Sophie nodded, unable to speak. She felt like she might throw up. She got dressed in the simple dress her mother had bought at a thrift store 2 weeks ago. It was dark blue, plain but clean, and Maria had spent hours carefully hemming it and making small adjustments so it fit Sophie perfectly. It was not fancy like the dresses Maya and her friends would wear, but it was respectful and appropriate. At school, the energy was electric. The talent show was scheduled for 7 o'clock that evening, but all day long students talked about nothing else. They compared notes on who was performing what. They made predictions about who would be good and who would embarrass themselves. They talked about the after-party that Maya's parents were hosting at their mansion for the performers and their families. Maya floated through the day on a cloud of confidence and anticipation. She wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, saving her performance dress for the evening. She talked constantly about her song choice and her training. She made sure everyone knew that she had been taking professional voice lessons for almost a decade. She accepted compliments and good wishes from other students like a queen receiving tribute. Several times throughout the day, Maya went out of her way to walk past Sophie. Each time she made a comment designed to increase Sophie's anxiety. "Big night tonight," she would say with false cheerfulness. "Are you nervous?" "You should be. The whole school is going to be watching. I heard your mom is coming too. That's sweet. She'll get to see you try your best even if it's not very good." Sophie tried to ignore her, but each comment was like a small knife cutting into her confidence. By the time school ended, Sophie felt like she could barely breathe. She went home and tried to rest, but she could not relax. She paced around her small bedroom, humming her song quietly, trying to remember all the words and the melody. Maria came home early from work, something she almost never did because she needed every hour of pay she could get. But tonight was important. She helped Sophie get ready, fixing her hair in a simple but pretty style. She put a little makeup on Sophie's face, just enough to make her look polished. She fastened a silver necklace around Sophie's neck, a necklace that had belonged to Sophie's father. "He would be so proud of you," Maria whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "You are braver than you know." They arrived at the school at 6:30. The parking lot was already filling up with cars. Families streamed toward the auditorium entrance, dressed nicely for the evening event. Sophie felt like she was walking toward her doom. Her legs felt weak and her hands were shaking. The auditorium was beautiful. The drama club had decorated with streamers and lights. The stage was set with professional sound equipment and lighting rigs. It looked much more impressive than usual. Sophie reported backstage where Mr. Harrison, the music teacher, was organizing the performers. There were about 30 students participating, a mix of singers, dancers, comedians, and instrumental musicians. Maya arrived with her parents shortly after Sophie got backstage. Her mother wore an elegant cocktail dress and expensive jewelry. Her father wore a tailored suit. They greeted other parents and made small talk, clearly comfortable in social situations. Maya herself looked stunning in a red designer gown that probably cost more than Sophie's mother made in 3 months. Her hair and makeup were professionally done. She looked like a young celebrity. When Maya saw Sophie backstage, she smirked. Sophie was standing alone in her simple blue dress, looking terrified. Maya swept past her without speaking, but her expression said everything. She looked at Sophie like she was an insect, something small and insignificant that would soon be crushed. The auditorium filled up quickly. All 500 seats were taken, and some people had to stand in the back. The lights dimmed at exactly 7 o'clock, and the principal walked onto the stage to welcome everyone. He thanked them for coming and supporting Lincoln High. He explained that all the proceeds from ticket sales would go to fund arts programs at the school. Then he introduced the first performer, and the show began. The first half of the talent show featured a variety of acts. There was a piano player who performed a classical piece. A group of girls did a dance routine to a popular song. A boy performed a comedy routine that made people laugh. The level of talent varied, but everyone was polite and supportive. The audience applauded after each performance. Sophie watched from backstage, her nervousness growing with each passing minute. She was scheduled to perform in the second half. As the intermission approached, she felt like she might faint. Her mother found her backstage during the break and gave her a tight hug. "You can do this," Maria whispered. "Remember, sing from your heart. Sing for your father. Don't think about anything else." Sophie nodded, but she felt disconnected from her body, like she was watching everything happen from far away. The second half of the show began, and slowly the performers before her went on stage and finished. A girl played violin. A boy sang a country song. 3 students performed a scene from a play. Each performance brought Sophie closer to her turn. Then, finally, Mr. Harrison called her name. Next up, we have Sophie Martinez performing a vocal solo. Sophie walked from the wings onto the stage on legs that felt like they might collapse under her. The bright stage lights hit her face, and beyond them, she could see the dark mass of the audience. 500 people sat out there watching her. She could not see individual faces, but she knew they were all staring at her. She knew Maya was somewhere backstage, probably filming this on her phone, ready to capture Sophie's humiliation. As Sophie walked to the center of the stage, she heard it, the laughter. It started as giggles from a section of the audience where she knew the popular students and their friends were sitting. Then it spread. People were laughing at her before she had even opened her mouth. They were laughing at her dress, at her nervousness, at the very idea that she thought she could perform. Sophie reached the microphone and stood there, frozen. Her mind went completely blank. She could not remember the words to her song. She could not remember the melody. She could not remember anything except the sound of laughter echoing through the auditorium. This was her nightmare coming true. This was exactly what she had feared. In the wings, Maya smiled with satisfaction. This was going exactly as she had planned. Sophie was standing there like a deer caught in headlights, clearly about to break down and run off stage. It was perfect. Maya had her phone out, recording everything. In the front row, Maria Martinez sat with tears streaming down her face. She wanted to run up on stage and protect her daughter, but she knew she could not. This was Sophie's moment, and she had to face it herself. Maria pressed her hand to her chest over her heart and prayed silently for strength for her daughter. Sophie stood at the microphone, the laughter washing over her like a wave. Every insecurity, every moment of humiliation, every cruel word Maya had ever said seemed to crash down on her at once. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to be anywhere but on this stage. Then, through the haze of fear and shame, she saw her mother in the front row. Maria's face was full of love and belief, even through her tears. And Sophie remembered what her mother had said. She remembered her father. She remembered all those lunchtimes in the music room, singing alone, feeling strong and free and connected to something bigger than her fear. The accompaniment track started playing through the speakers. The opening notes of Porti Volare filled the auditorium. Sophie had about 3 seconds before she needed to start singing. She closed her eyes. She blocked out the laughter, the lights, the watching crowd. She thought about her father teaching her this song in their tiny kitchen. She thought about his voice, warm and strong. She thought about his hand on her shoulder, telling her that singing was about truth. Sophie opened her mouth and began to sing. The first note that came from her throat was pure and clear and powerful. It cut through the laughter like a knife through silk. The giggling stopped abruptly as people realized something unexpected was happening. This was not the weak, trembling voice they had expected from the scared girl in the simple dress. This was something else entirely. Sophie sang the opening verse in Spanish, her voice growing stronger with each word. She was not thinking about technique or performance anymore. She was not thinking about Maya or the audience or the people who had mocked her. She was singing for her father, pouring out all the grief and love and longing she had carried since he died. Her voice soared and dipped, following the melody with a naturalness that came from deep within. There was a raw emotion in her singing that you could not learn from any vocal coach. It came from having survived pain. It came from knowing what it meant to lose someone you loved. It came from nights spent crying alone and days spent enduring cruelty with silent dignity. The auditorium had gone completely silent. The laughter had died away as if it had never existed. People sat frozen in their seats, suddenly realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. This was not just another student performance. This was real talent, real emotion, real art. Sophie sang about flying for someone you love, about reaching beyond your limitations, about hope in the face of obstacles. Her voice filled every corner of the large auditorium, reaching the back rows and the balcony seats with ease. She hit high notes that rang out like bells. She navigated complex melodic runs with effortless grace, but more than the technical skill, it was the emotion that captivated everyone. Backstage, Maya stood frozen with her phone still recording. She could not believe what she was hearing. This could not be happening. Sophie Martinez, the quiet scholarship girl, the target of her cruelty, was singing with a voice that made Maya's expensive vocal training seem hollow and meaningless. Maya felt something strange and uncomfortable twist in her chest. She did not have a name for it yet, but it was the first crack in the armor of her arrogance. In the audience, people were crying. Mothers thought about their own children. Fathers remembered their own dreams. Teachers felt their hearts swell with unexpected pride. Even students who had laughed at Sophie just minutes before now sat with their mouths open, stunned by the transformation they were witnessing. Sophie's mother sobbed openly in the front row, her hands clasped together. She saw her late husband in their daughter, his gift living on through her voice. She felt pride so intense it was almost painful. As Sophie moved into the final verse of the song, her voice seemed to grow even stronger. She was not afraid anymore. She was not thinking about anything except the music and the love she felt for her father. She sang the last high note, holding it long and pure, letting it ring through the space. Then slowly she brought the song to its gentle ending, the final words soft and tender. For a moment after the music stopped, there was absolute silence in the auditorium. Sophie opened her eyes, suddenly aware again of where she was. She saw the crowd sitting motionless, staring at her. For a brief, terrible second, she thought something had gone wrong. Then the applause began. It started as a rumble and grew into a roar. People jumped to their feet, clapping and shouting. The standing ovation swept through the entire auditorium like wildfire. Mothers and fathers applauded with tears streaming down their faces. Students who had never spoken to Sophie stood and clapped until their hands hurt. Teachers cheered. Even the principal was on his feet, applauding enthusiastically. Sophie stood at the microphone, stunned and overwhelmed. She had expected failure and humiliation. Instead, she was receiving praise she had never imagined possible. She looked out at the standing, cheering crowd and felt tears beginning to spill down her own cheeks. Her mother was in the front row, clapping and crying and laughing all at once. The applause continued for what felt like forever. Sophie gave a small, uncertain bow and then walked off the stage on shaking legs. As soon as she was in the wings, her knees buckled and she had to lean against the wall. Mr. Harrison was there, his face full of amazement. "Sophie," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That was incredible. I had no idea you could sing like that. That was one of the most moving performances I have ever heard." Other students backstage crowded around her, offering congratulations and compliments. People who had never spoken to her before were telling her how amazing she was. It was overwhelming and surreal. Sophie felt like she was in a dream, but there was one person who was not celebrating. Maya Chen stood alone in the corner of the backstage area, her face pale, her expensive red dress suddenly seeming too bright and too much. She was scheduled to perform next, to close out the show with her opera aria. But after what she had just heard, Maya felt something she had never experienced before. She felt inadequate. She felt ordinary. She felt afraid. Maya stood in the wings, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with performance nerves. She had performed dozens of times before and had never felt truly nervous. She always knew she was prepared, always trusted in her training and her superior skills. But right now, listening to the audience still buzzing with excitement over Sophie's performance, Maya felt genuine fear for the first time in her life. Mr. Harrison approached her, his clipboard in hand. "Maya, you're up next. Are you ready?" Maya opened her mouth to say yes, but the word would not come out. She looked past Mr. Harrison to where Sophie stood surrounded by admirers, still looking dazed and overwhelmed. Sophie had just done something Maya could not understand. She had taken all the fear and humiliation that Maya had deliberately piled onto her, and somehow transformed it into something beautiful. She had turned Maya's cruelty into fuel for a performance that had moved 500 people to tears. "Maya," Mr. Harrison said again, sounding concerned. "Are you all right? It's time for your performance." Maya forced herself to nod. She could not back out now. Her parents were in the audience, expecting to see her shine. Her friends were watching. The whole school was waiting. She had told everyone she would be the best performer of the night. She had to go through with it. She walked onto the stage, her red designer dress swishing around her legs. The applause that greeted her was polite and expected. People clapped because she was the principal's favorite, because her family had money, because that was what you did when someone came on stage. But there was none of the wild enthusiasm that had erupted for Sophie. Maya could feel the difference, and it stung. She took her place at the microphone and nodded to the sound technician to start her accompaniment track. The classical piano music began, and Maya started to sing her carefully chosen opera aria. Her voice was technically perfect, just as it always was. She hit every note correctly. Her breathing was controlled. Her posture was excellent. She did everything her vocal coach had taught her over 9 years of expensive lessons. But as she sang, Maya realized something devastating. The audience was listening politely, but they were not moved. They were not leaning forward in their seats. They were not crying. They were simply waiting for her to finish so they could applaud politely and go home. She could see it in their body language, in the way they shifted in their seats and checked their phones. What made it worse was the comparison. Everyone in that auditorium had just heard Sophie sing with raw emotion and undeniable power. Now they were hearing Maya's polished but empty performance, and the difference was stark. Technical skill without emotion was just noise. Pretty sounds without meaning were forgettable. Maya had never understood that before, but she understood it now, in the most painful way possible. She finished her aria and took a bow. The audience applauded. It was nice applause, enthusiastic enough to be respectful. But it was nothing like the standing ovation Sophie had received. A few people stood up, mostly Maya's parents and their friends, but it did not spread through the crowd. Most people just clapped from their seats and then started gathering their belongings, ready to leave. Maya walked off stage with her head held high, refusing to show any weakness. But inside she felt like she was crumbling. Her friends rushed up to her backstage, telling her she was amazing, but their words sounded hollow even to her own ears. They were saying what they were supposed to say, what they always said, but Maya could see in their faces that they knew the truth. Sophie had been better, much better. The principal returned to the stage to close the show and announce the winner. There were 3 judges, all local music teachers and performers from the community. They had score sheets and had been rating each performance throughout the night. The principal opened the envelope with the results. This year's talent show winner, receiving a $500 cash prize and a full scholarship to the prestigious Valley Performing Arts Summer Intensive Program, is Sophie Martinez. The applause that erupted was even louder than before. Sophie looked shocked, like she could not believe what she was hearing. Mr. Harrison had to gently push her back onto the stage to accept her award. She walked out slowly, still seeming dazed, and the principal handed her a certificate and an envelope. "Sophie," the principal said into the microphone, "that was one of the most extraordinary performances we have ever seen at Lincoln High. The judges were unanimous in their decision. Your talent is remarkable, and we are so proud to have you as a student here. Congratulations." Sophie could barely speak. She managed to whisper, "Thank you," into the microphone before hurrying off stage, overwhelmed by the attention. Her mother met her backstage and pulled her into a tight hug, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. Maya watched from a distance, standing alone while her friends chattered nervously nearby. Jessica, Brittany, and Chloe did not know what to say. They had all been part of the plan to humiliate Sophie, and it had backfired spectacularly. They looked uncomfortable, shooting glances at Maya and then looking away quickly. The after-party at Maya's mansion had been planned weeks ago. Her parents had hired caterers and set up the pool house for a celebration. All the performers and their families were invited. But as people started to leave the auditorium, Maya felt sick at the thought of hosting a party where everyone would be talking about Sophie's incredible performance and her own forgettable one. Maya's mother found her backstage. "You were lovely, darling," she said, kissing Maya's cheek. "Now come along. We need to get home and make sure everything is ready for the party." Maya followed her parents to their car, moving like a robot. She sat in the back seat during the drive home, staring out the window, not speaking. Her mother chattered about the performances in the evening, not noticing Maya's silence. Her father was on his phone, dealing with a work issue, as usual. At the mansion, Maya went through the motions of being a hostess. She greeted guests as they arrived. She smiled and made small talk. But inside she felt hollow. She watched as people congratulated Sophie, who had arrived with her mother. Sophie looked uncomfortable in the fancy setting, staying close to her mother and speaking softly when people talked to her. Maya stood near the pool with a glass of sparkling water, watching the party happen around her. Her friends were nearby, but for once she did not want to talk to them. She was trapped in her own thoughts, replaying the evening over and over in her mind. That was some performance tonight, a voice said beside her. Maya turned to see Natalie Chen, her older cousin who had graduated from Lincoln High 3 years ago and was now in college. Natalie had always been kind, unlike Maya, and they did not spend much time together because Maya found her cousin too soft and boring. Yeah, Maya said shortly, not wanting to have this conversation. Natalie looked at her carefully. You're upset. I'm fine, Maya said automatically. No, you're not, Natalie said gently. And I think I know why. You expected that girl Sophie to fail, and instead she was brilliant. And your performance, while technically good, felt empty in comparison. Am I right? Maya felt tears stinging her eyes, which made her angry. She never cried. You don't know what you're talking about. I think I do, Natalie said. Maya, I'm going to tell you something, and you're probably not going to want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyway because someone needs to. You have spent years being cruel to people. You have used your money and your family's position to make yourself feel superior. But tonight you learned something important. Real talent, real beauty, real power does not come from money or status or expensive lessons. It comes from inside. It comes from having actually experienced life, from having felt pain and overcome it, from having something genuine to express. Maya's jaw clenched. Are you saying I have no talent? I'm saying you have technical skill without heart, Natalie replied calmly. You can sing the notes, but you don't feel the music. And the reason you don't feel it is because you have never allowed yourself to be vulnerable. You have built walls around yourself made of cruelty and arrogance, and those walls keep you safe, but they also keep you from experiencing real emotion. Sophie Martinez has no walls. She has been hurt and broken and knocked down, but she is genuine. When she sings, you hear a real person expressing real feelings. When you sing, you hear someone performing. Stop it, Maya said, her voice shaking. You don't understand anything. I understand more than you think, Natalie said. I used to be a lot like you, actually. Not as cruel, maybe, but certainly arrogant and privileged. College changed me. Being away from this bubble of wealth and status, meeting people from different backgrounds, having to actually work for things instead of having them handed to me. It opened my eyes. You have a chance to open yours too, Maya. Tonight could be a turning point for you if you let it be. Maya wanted to argue, to defend herself, to put Natalie in her place with a cutting remark, but she could not find the words. Everything Natalie was saying echoed thoughts that had been forming in Maya's own mind since she had heard Sophie sing. She felt exposed and vulnerable, and she hated it. She left Natalie standing by the pool and walked away, heading into the house and up to her bedroom. She locked the door behind her and sat on her bed, finally allowing herself to feel everything she had been holding back all evening. Shame, embarrassment, confusion, and something else, something she was not used to feeling, guilt. Maya thought about all the things she had done to Sophie over the years, the mocking comments about her clothes and her lunch, the trash in her locker, the rumors and the social media posts, the betting pool about how badly she would perform tonight. Maya had orchestrated all of it, thinking she was superior, thinking she had the right to judge and punish someone for being poor and different. But tonight had shown her the truth. Sophie was not inferior. She was strong and talented and genuine in ways Maya had never been. Sophie had something real to offer the world. What did Maya have? A trust fund? A famous last name? Technical skills that meant nothing without emotion behind them? Maya lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She could hear the party continuing outside, voices and laughter floating up through her window. She knew she should go back down and play her role as the perfect hostess, but she could not make herself move. For the first time in her 17 years, Maya Chen was looking at herself honestly, and she did not like what she saw. She was a bully. She was cruel. She used her privilege as a weapon to hurt people who had done nothing wrong, except be born into different circumstances. She had spent years making Sophie's life miserable for no reason, except that it made her feel powerful. And tonight, Sophie had shown incredible grace and strength by not letting Maya destroy her. Sophie had taken all that pain and turned it into something beautiful. Maya felt tears sliding down her face, and this time she did not try to stop them. She cried for the first time in years, real tears of genuine emotion. She cried for the person she had become. She cried for the people she had hurt. She cried for the ugliness inside herself that she had never acknowledged before. Her phone buzzed with text messages from her friends, but she did not look at them. She did not want to talk to Jessica or Brittany or Chloe. They were part of who she had been, and suddenly that person seemed like a stranger to her. They would want to make excuses, to minimize what had happened, to protect their own egos. But Maya did not want excuses anymore. She wanted to understand how she had become so twisted and whether it was possible to change. The party went on for another 2 hours. Eventually the guests left, including Sophie and her mother. Maya heard cars leaving, heard the caterers cleaning up, heard her parents saying goodnight to the last few stragglers. Then the house fell quiet. Around midnight, Maya finally got up from her bed. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smeared from crying. Her expensive dress was wrinkled. Her hair was a mess. She looked terrible, but for the first time, she felt like she was seeing something real in the mirror instead of the perfect image she usually presented to the world. She thought about Monday, when she would have to go back to school. She thought about facing Sophie, facing her friends, facing everyone who had witnessed what happened tonight. Part of her wanted to pretend nothing had changed, to go back to being the person she had always been. It would be easier to blame Sophie somehow, to make excuses, to rebuild her walls of arrogance and cruelty. But another part of her, a small but growing part, knew that she could not go back. Something fundamental had shifted inside her. She had been forced to see the truth about herself, and now that she had seen it, she could not unsee it. The question was what she would do with that knowledge. Would she try to change, even though it would be hard and humbling and require her to admit she had been wrong? Or would she retreat back into her old patterns because they were familiar and comfortable? Maya did not have an answer yet. She was exhausted and overwhelmed. But as she finally changed out of her dress and got ready for bed, she knew that her life had changed tonight in ways she was only beginning to understand. The talent show had been supposed to be her moment of triumph and Sophie's moment of humiliation. Instead, it had become the night when Maya's carefully constructed world began to crumble, and Sophie's hidden strength was finally revealed to everyone. Maya did not sleep well that night. She kept waking up, her mind replaying Sophie's performance and the sound of the applause. Each time she dozed off, she would dream about standing on stage while people laughed at her. Or she would see Sophie's face when Maya had trapped her into signing up to sing. The shame was overwhelming, and by the time her alarm went off on Monday morning, Maya felt exhausted and sick. She got dressed slowly, putting on her usual expensive clothes and perfect makeup by habit. But as she looked at herself in the mirror, she felt like she was wearing a costume. The reflection looked back at her with judgment in her eyes. She grabbed her designer bag and headed downstairs, where her mother was already drinking coffee and reading emails on her tablet. "You look tired, darling," her mother said without looking up. "Late night?" "Yeah," Maya said quietly. She grabbed a granola bar and left for school, not wanting to talk. As Maya drove her expensive car into the student parking lot, she felt dread settling in her stomach. She did not want to face anyone today. She did not want to talk about the talent show or hear people praising Sophie, or see the disappointment in her friends' eyes. She just wanted to disappear, but disappearing was not an option. She parked her car and walked toward the school building. Students were everywhere, chattering excitedly about the weekend. As Maya passed groups of people, she heard Sophie's name mentioned over and over. "Did you see her sing? She was incredible. I had no idea she was that talented." She made everyone else look bad. Maya's friends were waiting by her locker as they did every morning. Jessica, Brittany, and Chloe looked uncertain when they saw her approaching. They did not know how to act or what to say. The plan they had all been part of had failed dramatically. "Hey," Jessica said carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Fine," Maya said, opening her locker and avoiding eye contact. She did not want to do this right now. She did not want to pretend everything was okay or make excuses or plan some new way to hurt Sophie in revenge. "That was crazy on Friday night, right?" Brittany said, trying to sound casual. "I mean, nobody expected Sophie to be that good." "Obviously," Chloe added. "But your performance was really good too, Maya. You were so polished and professional." Maya closed her locker harder than necessary. "Stop it," she said quietly. "We all know the truth. Sophie was better than me. Much better. And we all tried to humiliate her, and it backfired. Can we just not talk about it?" Her friends exchanged glances. They were not used to Maya being so direct or so honest. Usually, when things did not go Maya's way, she would find someone else to blame or would scheme some kind of revenge. This defeated, honest version of Maya confused them. "Okay," Jessica said slowly. "We don't have to talk about it." They walked to first period together, but the usual easy conversation was missing. Everything felt awkward and strained. Maya was relieved when the bell rang and she could focus on class instead of navigating the uncomfortable social situation. Throughout the morning, Maya could not help but notice how people looked at her. There were whispers and sideways glances. Some students seemed amused, like they were enjoying seeing the queen of the school taken down a notch. Others looked sympathetic but uncomfortable, not knowing how to approach her. Maya felt exposed in a way she had never experienced before. Her armor of confidence and cruelty had cracked, and she did not know how to protect herself anymore. At lunchtime, Maya faced the moment she had been dreading most. She had to walk into the cafeteria and face Sophie. She considered skipping lunch entirely, but that would be too obvious. She forced herself to walk through the double doors with her head up, pretending confidence she did not feel. Sophie was sitting at her usual table in the corner, eating lunch from her plastic container. But she was not alone anymore. Several students had joined her, people who had never spoken to her before. They were talking and laughing with her, clearly wanting to be associated with the girl who had become an overnight sensation. Maya got her lunch and sat with her friends at their usual prominent table in the center of the cafeteria. But she barely touched her food. She kept glancing over at Sophie, watching how comfortable and happy she looked surrounded by people who genuinely wanted to be near her. Something twisted in Maya's chest, a feeling she slowly recognized as envy. Sophie had earned respect through her talent and courage. Maya had only ever commanded fear through her cruelty, which was worth more. After lunch, Maya did something she had never done before. Instead of going to her next class, she walked to the music room. She needed time alone to think. She slipped inside the empty room and closed the door behind her. The room smelled like old wood and sheet music. There was a piano in the corner and rows of chairs stacked against the walls. Maya sat down at the piano and stared at the keys. She had learned to play when she was younger. Before she switched her focus entirely to voice lessons, she pressed a few keys randomly, creating discordant sounds that matched how she felt inside. She thought about her cousin Natalie's words at the party. Real talent comes from inside. It comes from having actually experienced life. What had Maya experienced? What genuine emotions did she have to draw from? She had been given everything she wanted her entire life. She had never struggled or suffered or overcome real obstacles. She had never needed to be strong because she had always had money and privilege to protect her. She had never connected deeply with anyone because she kept people at a distance with her cruelty and superiority. Her life was comfortable but empty, safe but meaningless. Maya realized she was crying again, tears dripping onto the piano keys. She felt lost and confused. She knew she needed to change, but she did not know how. She did not know who she would be without the armor of arrogance she had worn for so long. The thought of being vulnerable terrified her. The door to the music room opened and Maya quickly wiped her eyes. She turned, expecting to see a teacher, but instead she saw Sophie standing in the doorway. Sophie looked surprised to see Maya there. They stared at each other for a long moment, neither speaking. "I'm sorry," Sophie said finally. "I didn't know anyone was in here. I can come back later." Maya should have said something cruel. That was what the old Maya would have done. She would have made a cutting remark about Sophie getting too confident after one successful performance. But the words would not come. Instead, Maya heard herself say something she had never said to Sophie before. "Wait, please don't go." Sophie looked uncertain but stayed in the doorway. "What do you want, Maya?" Maya stood up from the piano, her hands shaking. This was the hardest thing she had ever had to do. "I want to apologize to you for everything, for all the terrible things I've done to you over the years. The comments, the pranks, the way I've treated you, and especially for trying to humiliate you at the talent show. You didn't deserve any of it. I was cruel to you because I thought I was better than you, but I was wrong. You're stronger and more talented and more real than I've ever been. I'm sorry, Sophie. I'm really genuinely sorry." Sophie stood very still, processing Maya's words. She did not look angry, just tired and sad. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you hate me so much? I never did anything to you." Maya felt more tears sliding down her face. "I didn't hate you. I don't know why I did those things. Maybe because you were different, or because hurting you made me feel powerful, or because I was so empty inside that making others feel small was the only way I could feel big. I don't have a good excuse. I was just cruel because I could be, because nobody stopped me, because I never thought about how it affected you. I never saw you as a real person with feelings. I only saw you as a target, and I'm so ashamed of that now. Sophie walked further into the room and closed the door behind her. She looked at Maya with an expression that was hard to read. "Do you know what it was like?" she said, her voice stronger now. "Coming to school every day knowing that you were going to find some new way to hurt me? Do you know how many times I cried myself to sleep because of something you said or did? Do you know how many times I wanted to just give up and drop out of school because I couldn't take it anymore?" Maya shook her head, crying harder now. "I'm so sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't take back what I did or erase the pain I caused. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you, and it makes me sick. Watching you sing on Friday night, seeing your courage and your talent, realizing that I tried to destroy something beautiful because I was too shallow and mean to recognize it. It broke something in me. I can't be that person anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore." Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Maya could see her thinking, weighing Maya's words, trying to decide if this apology was genuine or just another trick. Finally, Sophie spoke. "I forgive you, Maya." Maya looked up, shocked. "What?" "I forgive you," Sophie repeated. "Not because you deserve it. Not because what you did was okay, but because I don't want to carry around anger and hatred. My father taught me that holding on to bitterness only hurts yourself. So I forgive you. But Maya, you need to understand something important. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't mean we're suddenly friends, and it definitely doesn't mean I trust you. Forgiveness means I'm letting go of the anger. But you still have to live with the consequences of your actions. You still have to do the work to change. You have to prove through your actions, not just your words, that you're becoming a better person." Maya nodded, wiping her tears. "I understand. And I will. I'm going to change. I don't know exactly how yet, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be better." Sophie looked at her for another moment, then nodded. "I hope you do, Maya, I really do. Because the world has enough cruelty in it already. We need more people who choose kindness." With that, Sophie turned and left the music room, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. Over the following weeks and months, Maya began the difficult work of changing who she was. It was not easy or quick. There were many times when she wanted to slip back into her old patterns because they were familiar and comfortable. But she forced herself to keep trying. She started by stepping away from her old friends. Jessica, Brittany, and Chloe did not want to change. They wanted to keep living the way they always had, using their privilege to feel superior. When Maya told them she was done being cruel to people, they laughed at her and called her weak. Maya realized they had never been real friends at all. They had just been accomplices in her cruelty. Maya began volunteering at the community center, where Sophie's mother sometimes brought her elderly house-cleaning clients for social activities. She helped serve meals, played card games with seniors, and listened to their stories. It was humbling work that put her in contact with people from backgrounds completely different from hers. She learned about struggle and sacrifice and dignity in the face of hardship. She also used her family's money differently. Instead of spending it on designer clothes and expensive lunches with fake friends, she set up an anonymous scholarship fund for Lincoln High students facing financial difficulties. She funded it generously, making sure students like Sophie would have support. Maya stopped trying to be the center of attention. She stopped making cruel comments and spreading rumors. When she heard other students being mean to someone, she spoke up and told them to stop. At first, people were suspicious of her changes, thinking it was some kind of long game or trick. But gradually, through consistent action, they began to see that her transformation was real. Sophie and Maya never became close friends. The wounds were too deep and too much had happened between them. But they developed a mutual respect. They would nod to each other in the hallways. Occasionally, they would have brief conversations. Sophie could see that Maya was genuinely trying to change, and she respected the effort even if she could not forget the past. On graduation day, the entire senior class gathered in their caps and gowns. Maya stood in line, waiting to walk across the stage and receive her diploma. She thought about how different she was from the person she had been at the beginning of the year. She had lost her social throne, lost her fake friends, and lost the false sense of superiority that had defined her for so long. But she had gained something more valuable: self-awareness, humility, and the beginning of genuine character. Sophie was a few people ahead of her in line. When Sophie's name was called, the audience erupted in applause. She had become a respected and admired member of the school community. She had been accepted to a prestigious performing arts college with a full scholarship. Her talent had opened doors that her family's poverty might have otherwise kept closed. When Maya's name was called, the applause was polite, but subdued. She was no longer the queen of Lincoln High. She was just another graduating senior. And surprisingly, Maya was okay with that. She walked across the stage, accepted her diploma, and felt a sense of peace. She did not need to be the best or the most popular or the most powerful anymore. She just needed to be decent and honest and kind. After the ceremony, as students milled around taking photos with their families, Maya found Sophie standing with her mother. She walked over slowly, not wanting to intrude. Sophie saw her coming and gave her a small, genuine smile. "Congratulations, Sophie," Maya said sincerely. "I heard about your scholarship. You're going to do amazing things. The performing arts world is lucky to have you." "Thank you, Maya," Sophie replied. "Congratulations to you too. I heard you're going to volunteer with a nonprofit before starting college." "That's really great," Maya nodded. "Yeah. I need to figure out who I am and what I actually care about before I make decisions about my future. I've spent my whole life having everything planned for me, and I realized I don't actually know what I want or who I am outside of my family's expectations." Sophie looked at her thoughtfully. "It takes courage to admit that. I hope you find what you're looking for." "Thank you," Maya said. She hesitated, then added, "And thank you for giving me the chance to change. For forgiving me even though I didn't deserve it. Your voice that night at the talent show, it didn't just show everyone else who you really were. It showed me who I had become. And it gave me the chance to become someone better. So thank you, Sophie, for everything." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "You're welcome, Maya. Good luck with everything." They did not hug or exchange phone numbers or promise to stay in touch. But they looked at each other with understanding and respect. Two young women whose lives had intersected in painful ways, but who had both grown from the experience. Sophie had learned that her strength and talent could not be diminished by cruelty. Maya had learned that privilege without character was empty, and that true worth came from how you treated others. As the graduation celebration continued around them, both girls felt hope for their futures. Sophie was heading toward her dreams, carrying her father's gift and her mother's love with her. Maya was heading toward uncertainty, but with a chance to build herself into someone worth respecting. They had both found their voices, though in very different ways. And they had both learned that the most powerful transformations often come from the most painful moments, when we are forced to see the truth about ourselves and choose whether to hide from it or grow from it.